There it is.
Okay, good evening. This is Villa Park Traffic and Safety Commission, and it is 8 o'clock, and we're going to start our meeting. So we're going to open up with a roll call.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
D'Alessandro,
Here.
Flaskamp, McMurray,
Yes.
Carl Timmerman,
Here.
Karen Timmerman, Wagner,
Here.
Chairman Pinkos.
Here. Okay, with that, we will move on to amendments to the agenda. Do we have any amendments to this agenda?
Not an amendment per se, but I would like to call out my mistake. I incorrectly listed agenda item 9A, commission item number 892 is 723 East Madison Street. That should be 721 East Madison Street.
Okay. All right. Any other comments about amendments to this agenda? Okay, with that, we'll go right on to public comments on agenda items, and we have nobody in the public here, so we'll move right on to public comments on non-agenda items, and again, nobody here to make any comments. So we're going to go on to the report of bike pedestrian, long night, and transit subcommittee report from Bob Wagner.
Thank you, Chairman Pinkos. I'll be very brief. So our last meeting was on Thursday, March 23rd, and I did send out prior to the meeting, and I apologize, I'll try and do it in a more timely basis, the minutes from our February 23rd meeting and our March 23rd meeting. The March 23rd meeting minutes are just a draft. So just main points that we talked about. So far as the bicycle-friendly community application, really nothing new on that. We're waiting to see that the next round of applications is in August, and we're waiting to see who our liaison will be to help us with that. We did talk a little bit about the Villa Avenue Improvement Project, the public input meeting, and I'm sure that Kevin will be talking about that. Since there will be improvements to the Salt Creek Greenway Trail, all three of us were there, and we were very interested in the proposals. I thought that the on-street bike lane might be a viable alternative if there was some protection, but we will be participating in a volunteer fair just to get exposure, let the public know what the Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee is doing. That will be on April 29th at the library. We talked a little bit about Operation Lifesaver, which is going to be Joe Amore, who's the chair, is very involved in that, and that will take place at our metro station on April 11th. It's kind of a public education thing about, rail safety, et cetera. We did get, I mentioned at the last meeting, the taxi assistance subsidy, and we got that into the spring edition of the Village Matters. We talked about the walk-friendly application. There's nothing new there. They haven't updated their website, so we don't know when the new deadline will be for that. And then we did talk about trying to promote some activities for May. May is Bike Month nationally, and organizations like Active Transportation Alliance are kind of falling into that pattern, and so we talked about doing some things. We are going to do a Ride of Silence on May 17th. Ride of Silence is kind of it's kind of a solemn event. It recognizes bicyclists who have lost their life due to accidents, and encourages, bike safety, sharing the road. And I did speak to Deputy Chief McCann, and we will have we're going to link up with a group from Elmhurst, and we'll get a police escort on bike as far as the parade path. So that's kind of the major notes from our meeting, our March 23rd meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Is a lot of this being put in, is a lot of this being announced on, like in the Villa Park Review, or how is that getting out to the public?
We're gonna try and get something, a press release in the Villa Park Review, yes, yeah.
Because there's some.
And then Donnie Pisano, who's the Public Information Officer, we're gonna see if he can promote some of these things as well.
All right, sounds good. Any comments from the commissioners? Okay, thank you, Bob. We'll move on for approval of the minutes. Has everybody looked over the minutes, and is there any comments on them? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll
Matt?
make that motion.
D'Alessandro?
Second?
So seconded.
Okay, Ed seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. All right, so that's going to move us on to old businesses. And we're going to item number 890, Jackson Middle School traffic patterns. I did notice that exit from the Circle Drive of the entrance, they do now have 2 stop signs there.
Yes, and actually, I believe that was up as of the last commission meeting. I just neglected to mention it. So,
Okay.
thanks go out to District 45 on that. They were more than happy to oblige.
Yeah, so, doesn't still stop them from going left or excuse me, they're going right. A lot of them, everybody that's there early that I see ends up going right. So, anyways, so that's good, at least they did that. Do we still want to leave this on in reference to see what improvements, isn't there some improvements coming up for Jackson after you get done with the retention storm sewer project?
I'm not sure what that might be in reference to. I'm not aware of any.
Because we were talking about the sidewalk down on the east side there for the handicap that we put in last year, and we were talking about the striping.
Was Jackson getting redone?
Jackson will be resurfaced at some point. It's
Or is
scheduled.
this going to be
Yeah, I
resurfaced?
think that's what he
Yes,
was.
that is
Yeah.
scheduled. But yeah, as far as anything beyond that, I'm not sure.
All right, I thought there might have been something going on with the traffic pattern and how everything.
There is
the
sort of
new
a
school
Yeah, there is an ongoing goal just to monitor the traffic flow, the traffic patterns, the ingress egress, and just kind of have an ongoing dialogue about that. That was one of the conditions that was stipulated as a result, or as a condition of the Early Childhood Center development construction, and then the addition and other improvements at Jackson Middle School.
Okay. Do we think we should keep this on our agenda, or comments from anybody else?
I don't see a reason to keep it on. And I'm always the one to say keep them on.
Yeah, we could always reopen this later on if new issues and concerns should arrive. I say that we remove it for now.
Okay, do we have a motion to close this?
Motion to close item number 890.
Second.
McMurray motion, second by Carl Timmerman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, so it's closed. New business, item number 892, traffic at 721 East Madison Street. Any comments from anybody from the commission?
I can offer, since the Traffic and Safety Commission's last meeting, as I think we were all aware, Planning and Zoning was considering the item on their meeting that following Thursday. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of the special use to the village board by a vote of 5-2, is my understanding. That recommendation is up for consideration tentatively on the agenda for this Monday, the 10th, by the village board. I can also report that there are 3 conditions that were attached to the planning and zoning recommendation. One is that there be no vehicular access to the site from Madison Street. Obviously, there really isn't any now, but that would basically be further prohibiting that. Second would be the removal of the curb cut and driveway apron access from Madison Street. Currently doesn't provide vehicular access to the site per se, but does allow for the trash pickup to take place. That dumpster would be moved to the parking lot proper on the south side of the building, and that curb cut and driveway apron would be removed so that there wouldn't be any way to get onto the property from Madison Street without jumping that curb. And then the third and final condition was the installation of a 4-foot tall privacy fence that would at least deter anybody who didn't want to climb a 4-foot fence from entering the property from Madison Street. In addition to the planning and zoning conditions that were recommended, staff is also moving forward with a proposed change to the mailing and street address. Instead of being 721 East Madison Street, I believe the proposed address would be 800 South Route 83. Basically just to further distinguish the property from its Madison Street, vicinity and clarify that it is a Route 83 address with a Route 83 access point.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Bob, did you have a comment on that?
No, I did, the village board meeting a week from this Monday, there were some residents there, and they still are, they plan to be, I'm sure, this coming Monday at the village board meeting, because there's still a group of them that are very concerned about traffic. They don't, so.
Okay. I have stopped by there to look at that, and I'm just wondering, well, at the moment, on the east side of that building, there is asphalt pathway.
Yes.
Okay. Is that owned by us as the village? Is that owned by the state? Or is that actually owned by the property owner?
I believe, and I should check this perhaps before speaking, but I believe it's technically located within the state right-of-way, but the village maintains it, and that was put in, I can speak to that. That path was initially installed and subsequently maintained to allow safe pedestrian access flow through that corridor. We heard quite a bit about the cul-de-sac that went in back in the 1980s, early 1990s, from the public comments that were made last time. One of the things that came up after that was the request and desire for a safe pedestrian access to Walmart from the neighborhood. And so that is the reason that is there.
Okay. All right. So that path will stay there, essentially?
I don't believe that any of the residents were requesting that change, and staff would prefer that it stay in place, and again, to allow that safe pedestrian pass through.
Okay. And then the other thing is I believe there is no parking on the south side of the road all the way up and to the cul-de-sac. It's not clearly marked that way.
I believe parking is actually prohibited on the north side of Madison Street, not the south side.
There is a sign on the south side too that says no parking, and there's a double arrow going east and west.
Gotcha. I apologize that I may have misread that.
Well, I guess what I'm leading into, that do we really need to maybe have another sign in the cul-de-sac area that says no parking? Or do we want to leave that open so the residents can have visitors and be able to park on that street instead of walking a block before they get to the,
Yeah, the one thing I didn't do was actually take a look at the ordinance to see what it calls out. Looked at the existing signs, but I think it would be actually worth going back to the
be right
underlying
about there.
ordinance.
Is that a sign right there?
Memory serves me, I think the water.
Back up a little bit, silence.
Yeah.
I think there are two.
I took a peek at it too, and,
There it is.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well hidden, okay, and it's also well hidden on the north side, because there's a, no, it's further on down the line, okay, not in this spot here.
They didn't say anything about putting a fence in at the end, like that there's no access, if you go back further.
You're saying at the cul-de-sac itself?
Yeah. Cause I think that's where the biggest parking, if there's an access point right there, that's why people want to park there. So if there was no access point, then there is no real reason to park in that area.
My understanding is that was the reason planning and zoning recommended the privacy fence.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I'm not
Okay.
clear on what the limits of that proposed fence are,
Yeah,
but I believe that information should be in the agenda for
okay. I'll take,
whatever meeting that item does go to.
yeah, okay.
And I think they were vague about how that fence was going in, so I didn't quite understand it
Okay.
either. So, but my point is, I believe that path was there for access from the residents in that area to go to Walmart. And Carl, I think you mentioned that before, am I correct on that?
What exactly are you saying?
That path that's there on the east side of this building along 80, or let's see, 83 there, that's,
It's part of it, and, you know, even at one point, what you're referring to about me is one point I brought up that there's not a really good pedestrian pathway along the frontage road right by the creek.
right.
Which leads to the parking lot there. But that part, yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, so, and I think the residents wanted it there, am I correct?
I don't know if it's the residents so much as just, you know, having some kind of pedestrian access there where they're having to cut through woods or something like that.
Okay,
And I think three residences there are really on that side of Madison, is that correct? There are three houses.
yeah, I believe you're correct, it's 3.
So, I mean, there's actually not good pedestrian flow along the street there. I don't think they even have a walkway in front of the houses over there.
On the south side of the street, they
North
do.
side- On the south side, it's all overgrown over there, isn't it?
I know there's a sidewalk over there. Yeah, unless I,
South side, yeah. Not north side.
north side. So, anyways, it's just something I just wanted to bring up for comments from anybody, but I think you're correct, it's been approved and went to the board from planning and zoning. So, and those are all my notes that I had too, Kevin, so. So with that,
Chairman Pincus, just to speak to your comment, the way it's codified in the village ordinance is no parking on Madison Street south side from Riverside Drive to Route 83 frontage road. So effectively from that intersection where Riverside intersects Madison Street heading east to the cul-de-sac. And then north side from Addison Road to Route 83. So basically literally the entire stretch of Madison Street north side is no parking throughout the entire village. I assume, even though it doesn't appear to be specifically codified, that the cul-de-sac is interpreted to be within the fact that both the north and south are prohibited there, so.
okay. The only thing I'm asking, I guess, is if you could maybe swing by there and just see how that all looks in reference to, because I want to say on the north side, I thought it was from this sign to the corner, which would be about 30 feet, and I may be wrong on that. That one there.
That's no parking this side of street.
Yeah.
And actually, I apologize, I misspoke here. It actually does include the cul-de-sac. There's a third line, Madison Street north side from the east, Route 83 frontage road, east to and including the entire turnaround at the east dead end.
Okay.
That said, though, I think it could potentially be signed a little bit more extensively. There would be a benefit, I think, for one or more additional signs down near the cul-de-sac, since I'm not seeing any others.
I'm just wondering if the residents would want to have those signs and they just leave that for them, because it really does prohibit the residents to have guests. And I mean, they're basically walking from Riverside to their homes.
That's true. That's true.
So I just don't know if we should look into that and,
Well,
Or
it's
how we
currently
look at it.
ordinanced that way.
Yeah.
Just, I guess, a question of whether or not additional signage should be added to enforce it.
right, if you could look into that. Sounds good. With that, we think we should keep this on as an agenda item?
When do they plan to do those improvements on the as far as what, the fence and the curb cut being removed?
It would be, presuming the village board approves the petition and then also approves it with those conditions, they would be required to comply with those at some point.
Which we should have, the board should approve it between this meeting and our next meeting?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think it's tentatively on for the Monday night, Monday the 10th. If it slips from that one, it would be presumably the following meeting.
You want to leave that until then?
And planning and zoning basically approved the permit or the purchase or whatever what they're going through. They approved it on the condition of having those three things. And if they didn't have those three things taken care of, then it wouldn't be approved and they're back to square one.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if the board hasn't approved it yet, maybe we should wait till they do it and then take it off our agenda. Anybody?
Comments?
I say we do a wait and see for one more month, even though I think as far as traffic and safety, the proper signage is in place for what we can do at this point in time, but let's wait and see until next month. It won't hurt us to see if there's anything new that should transpire between now and the next meeting. And then we'll consider it at that point.
Sounds good. We'll leave it on. Okay, let's move on to item number 893, parking restrictions and striping on South Villa Avenue north of Madison Street.
I can report that staff does not have a draft ordinance for this ready for the commission's review and consideration as of yet. Hopefully at the next commission meeting.
So, then we'll just leave that on and move on to, unless there's any other comments about this, move on to item number 894, striping and signage for crosswalk at Jackson Street and Leslie Lane. I think we're talking about that because there's a temporary one now?
There is, yes. Just to refresh everyone's memories, last year the commission was asked to look into the possibility of curb ramps across Jackson Street at this intersection. We were able to get those constructed with our sidewalk program last year. There were no plans at that time to actually stripe a crosswalk across Jackson Street, but because of the nearby Jackson Pond expansion project, the sidewalk on the south side of Jackson Street is currently obstructed, and staff temporarily striped a crosswalk across Jackson Street to allow for safe travel to school while that sidewalk on the south side is closed.
Okay, and I think the question is once the construction is done, I thought we were looking to see if we can have that permanently striped, and you were gonna check.
Was that the commission's request? Perhaps I misunderstood. I thought the question was whether or not it should be temporarily signed until the construction was over. Maybe I misunderstood that.
That's how I understood it as well, because we have a temporary crosswalk there. And people are looking for signage. And so, yeah, that's how I understood it too.
Okay.
So I can speak to the question of whether or not it should be striped, whether or not it should be signed. Did some research, some extensive reading into that. There are not a whole lot of standards that say whether or not striping or signage of a crosswalk at that type of location would actually be required or not. There are all kinds of rules that pertain to what striping should go down once you decide striping should go down, what size and type and location and number of signs should go up once you decide those should go up. But as to the decision as to whether one or the other should be used in the first place, there's a lot of room for judgment left on those. It is worth noting, as I think Trustee Solella mentioned at the last meeting, there's a crosswalk across Jackson Street at Wisconsin that is not stop controlled, yet the legs across Jackson Street are striped, and the crosswalks are also signed with school zone pedestrian crossing signage. There's one sign missing, just for the commission's knowledge. We're working on getting that added back in. So the crossing at Wisconsin would be fully striped, across Jackson fully signed. That said, that one is literally in front of the school. This one is approximately 150 feet off of school property, a few hundred feet away from the school itself. So I think staff is open to the commission's preferences, but based on other locations in town, this is not one that we typically would have permanent striping and signage on if there were not a nearby construction project.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. I think that there should be permanent striping and signage there, with the design of, why we came to the decision on that it would be important in the first place was to help, namely students from Willowbrook coming up Leslie Lane, / it could even be some Jackson students coming down that way too. In using that crosswalk, I think that's going to be who would predominantly use it, and to have that type of striping and the signage in protection of those school-age kids and students, I think would be a benefit. And given its proximity to the school, I think it would be a wise choice to do it. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Question. Now, so there wouldn't be stop signs there, but you'd put up signage. What type of signage would, I'm just trying to understand so they don't get a false sense of security with the crosswalk if it's not a protected intersection.
Sure. It would be very similar to the existing signage that is at the crosswalk at Wisconsin. I would invite everyone to drive through that intersection just to take a quick look. It basically consists of what we call the fluorescent yellow-green. I'm sure everyone can picture those extremely loud colored signs that shows basically a parent walking a child across the intersection. And then the required installation consists both of a head sign, I want to say, I believe 250 feet in advance of the intersection. Please don't quote me on that number though. And then another sign at the actual crosswalk with an arrow pointing downwards. It's a fluorescent yellow-green pentagon sign with basically a parent and child crossing. Then those would theoretically be on both approaches to the intersection, to the crosswalk, technically.
My only other comment, Matt, I agree with you, okay? I also kind of agree with it because that is also a park area on the east side of the school over there. So I know they play soccer, or used to play soccer, and I don't know what's happening now after you get done with your improvement over there.
There will still be recreational fields.
Okay, so with that, I don't think it would hurt to have that marked and crossed. However, that then also then brings up the situation at Ardmore, I believe, because there's a walk that goes across, but I know there's something funky with the sidewalk over there at Ardmore.
At Ardmore and Jackson?
And Ardmore and Jackson. Unless
I think it was the issue that we only have a crosswalk on the north side of Jackson Street. I don't recall for sure if that was what the commission had noted previously.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know that would necessarily be an issue. It is probably one that should receive a crosswalk at some point in the future. We don't have any plans for large-scale improvements on that section of Ardmore in the near future, but certainly when future improvements were to take place, that's something that I think would be reasonable.
Yeah. So, but getting back to the other location, I totally agree that I think there should be permanent striping in the signage to go along with it. It seemed to be the Willowbrook student that originally brought this up with several people crossing at that place,
Yes.
location. So I totally think we should permanently sign that and stripe it.
Okay.
So should we just go ahead and make a recommendation on that?
I think that would be my preference from a staff point of view is yes, having a traffic and safety recommendation with a vote behind it would be helpful for us to move forward.
Okay. All right, and any other comments, thoughts? All right, so we'll just leave this on, give you a recommendation, and see, does that go to the board, to the village board? Or does that just go to?
Question of whether or not to add signage and striping there is typically not one that rises to the board, or at least in the past has not been taken to the board for consideration. Staff typically
Okay,
takes action on those internally, administratively.
would that be a positive action, or do we want to wait and see what the comments come from the engineering department?
I think I would prefer that, let me pose it this way. If staff does not object, would the commission prefer that we go ahead and install the signage, or otherwise, if we do object, we could come back to you at, say, the next May meeting and voice those concerns?
I think either way, we need to know.
Sure,
what
of
that
course.
happened. So I think we will leave this item on until the next meeting and see what the
Okay.
results are.
Could I ask, though, that a formal vote be made on that recommendation, just to be reflected in the minutes that way?
I have no problems with that. So anybody have a motion on that? Matt has a motion first, seconds.
I'll second the motion.
Wagner?
Wagner. All
The
in
motion is to sign and stripe that crossing.
Permanently,
Yes.
permanently sign and stripe that crossing.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, very good. All right, so that moves on to commissioners' comments, and Ed, we're gonna
do.
start it. Oh,
I still need to open up the possibility for any new business that wasn't already listed.
oh, okay. Is there any new business that hasn't been listed that we wanna discuss right now? Yes, Bob?
I would just mention that I was walking on Adams, and this is something that Commissioner Del Sandro has mentioned as well, was talking to people on Adams, and a resident there said, we have high speeds and traffic issues here, and I said, well, you should come to a Traffic and Safety Commission meeting. We're meeting tomorrow, and just so kind of something that Matt has said, this gentleman mentioned to me as well. So,
What was the location of that?
Yeah.
That they're having?
so it's a stretch of Adams, like between, I'm gonna say, Adams between like Harvard and Addison.
Yeah. There's no stop, there's no stop sign or
No
anything.
stop signs.
So I,
Came up once many years ago.
yeah.
It was actually a Boy Scouts Eagle project,
Oh, really?
and we had to answer that, and we didn't believe it would make warrant to do anything, stop sign wise.
Yeah, I brought it up 2 years ago as well, when we looked into it and stuff.
Am I wrong in recalling that it was actually an agenda item, or?
It was, it
okay.
was, and we were looking at it, we wanted to relook at things post, early childhood center being done, because that was part of a concern
In
as
the
well.
pandemic and everything else
Yeah.
that was happening.
So, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about, and.
This is a different guy than you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, different guy.
Yeah, because I had another, same person that I had before, but had brought it up again at our neighborhood block party this summer. So that it just is continuously kind of a problem, and I understand it too, because it's from Madison to Harvard, there's no stops. So people kind of use it as a speedways at times.
Well, those are two, would you use the word arterial streets? So I could see that.
So, yeah, that's just a concern.
So do you think that could be just an enforcement issue?
You know, that police presence always makes a difference.
I understand, and I know, they can't be everywhere in town because,
But if they make the effort to be there more often, just checking things out, it really does have an impact.
maybe we can pass that on.
I can do that.
Yeah, that could work, especially around school let-out hours or something, or even in the afternoon when, especially during summertime when the kids are out. There's a lot of kids in that stretch of town and like to play in their yards and stuff, and so that's the kind of parents' concern from there. And then my big concern when I brought it up is growing up over there is the school let-out time is kids don't always look both ways and people are flying down the street. So, but yeah, that could potentially be something that works.
Okay. So, we'll ask to see if we can have a
I
little
will
bit of.
pass that along.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. We had a resident concern about speeding and drag racing on Vermont between Ardmore and Villa back a couple of meetings ago.
I believe it was actually last meeting.
It was the last, okay, I know I went over to Vermont, I looked just to, I know it's a nice, smooth piece of property, but I also noticed that there was a light-up speed sign, a radar speed sign that was down by Gerald or Hamilton down there. I was just wondering if there was any results out of that, or was that an enforcement issue also?
I believe that was specifically in response to those complaints from Coffee with the Board that were raised by trustee Solella.
Okay,
At
so
the last meeting,
so
but let
they had
me-
already, because I left the meeting and went over there and I noticed that they already had the radar, light-up radar sign, so I realized that there was already actions being taken. I was just wondering if there's any results.
No, I can look into that, though. Yeah, obviously, by the time trustee Solella had mentioned it at our Traffic and Safety Commission meeting, it had already been brought to the attention of the board, had been brought to the attention of police and the manager's office, and there were other actions being taken to follow up before trustee Solella even reported here. So,
Okay. Okay. Sounds like we can move on. All right, now we can move on to commissioners' comments. We'll start with Ed, different direction.
Thank you. Just a quick housekeeping item. I will not be here at the next meeting. I'm going to be out for a small medical procedure, but I'll be back in June.
Okay. Good luck on your procedure. Carl?
I really just have a question, and Kevin should be able to answer it. On the Monterey project, in the past, there was always a fire hydrant at the location at 520 South Monterey. And they seem to have installed one a little bit further south, about 2-3 houses, I'd say around 540-ish. And there's still a fire hydrant laying on the parkway nearby 520. Is this that they're not going to put one there? What's the reason for the change?
let me look into that. Typically, the driving force behind those changes is spacing on hydrants. I believe the minimum spacing is 300 feet. We strive for 250, just for fire protection standards. In many cases, some of our older areas of town have 400 or 500 feet between existing hydrants, and so we look at that spacing with those projects and bring them closer together. It's possible that the one at 520 ended up such that when it got shifted from a 400 feet to a 250, that's why it moved 1 or 2 homes in the other direction. But I can certainly look into that and get back to you with the specifics.
Well, Karen would ask you anyway, so.
Understood.
That's all I have.
Yep, I can provide you a response on that.
Okay, thank you.
Jack?
I'm good?
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of an announcement. So my term on the commission is up in April, and due to some personal reasons, I will not be continuing. But I wanted to say that I've thoroughly enjoyed working on this commission. I'm really proud of the work we've done over the past 2 years. And that, I hope I was able to add something of value, to the commission. This won't be my end of doing anything, just taking a little time for a little while, and I'll be back in some capacity, but, yeah, I just wanted to announce, to let everybody know that, and then, yeah, I just thank you for the opportunity, and I appreciated working with all of you.
Thanks for being here.
Yep. Thank you. We're gonna miss you probably. Well, I know we're gonna miss you. Because you definitely gave us some insight on certain things a different way, so. Okay. Bob?
Yeah, just a couple of things. There was an interesting article in the Daily Herald on Tuesday, and it was about the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration reporting on 2021 statistics, 43,000 traffic deaths in 2021, a 10.5% increase. Pedestrian deaths rose by 13%. So very kind of some stark numbers there. And that preliminary numbers for 2022 will be out in a couple weeks. So I just thought that was very interesting. I was looking for what bike fatalities, but I didn't see anything on that, but very interesting, kind of sad. I did send out an email, and I apologize I sent out so late, to the commission. This was sharing the link to the webinar about transportation trends in 2023. And if you scroll down, there's more information that came from Active Transportation Alliance. And there's also a round of grant opportunities pertaining to safe routes to school. And I know that the village put together a grant application for safe routes to school a few years ago, but it wasn't successful. And there are some opportunities to get in the know about safe routes to school and maybe strategies for applying for the grant. So I sent it to you, Kevin, I copied as well. And then the other thing, I was reading about the manual on uniform traffic control devices, and that they're doing some sort of revision on that, and they were looking for input on ways to change that, and I'm just wondering if you know when a new edition will be coming, or
I don't know when the new edition is expected to be out. I was aware that it's currently under the public comment period and that type of thing, but no, I don't know the actual release.
okay. And that's all I have.
Are you looking for something specific from?
Well, there was some interesting discussion about the MUTCD, about, how some parts of it are out of date, and, so.
Okay. Let's see.
And I know we depend on it, the staff depends
Yes.
on it when it comes to making decisions, so,
Kind of like a Bible.
yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have no comments at all. Getting excited that spring and summer is coming around the corner, so that's all I have. Yep, yes.
I would add that we're bound to get two new members of the village board, and we'll be losing trustee Solella, so, and I'm sorry to see Commissioner D'Alessandro leave. It's been nice having him on the commission, so just want to add that.
All right. Did you get results on the,
I know some things, but it's still early in the evening, so.
okay. It was interesting, because I think there's
Speculate yet.
three to be elected.
Yeah.
So I was just
Right.
wondering if,
I think I know who's going to be elected, but I'm not going to say.
Okay.
I don't know for certain.
I just thought maybe you got results on it.
I spread misinformation before. I don't want to do it.
I will say this, I don't know if I checked the vote count before, And the total vote, I'm almost positive with barely just any precincts reporting, was already more than what we had 2 years ago.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, 2 years ago was really just not a good turnout, but this turnout's been better, so that's good to see.
Okay, good. Okay, Kevin?
Only thing I have is, Matt, thank you.
Excuse me, Carl.
For having effort on the commission. Appreciate everything you've done for us, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Okay. And obviously, we don't have anybody else here for comments. So we're just going to move right on to looking for a motion to close this meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Second was Carl, sorry.
Yes.
So first by Wagner, second by Timmerman.
Yes.
Carl Timmerman. Okay.
All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, so we'll officially close this at 8:46. Thank you.